Park, Florida, also out of Oakland Park. That's near the airport, mind you. The cell phone waiting lot, that area where the loop road comes in, closed because water's already over the roads. And there is more on the way. Look at this band. This is the trouble spot. This is going to be the big show for Fort Lauderdale. Special marine warning again because of embedded tropical systems that are out there. But then all of this is pointed at Lauderdale, where we have that flash flood warning. Look at how much rain has already fallen in this zone. We're talking about widespread 5 to 8. I think we could double that. If that band sticks in one spot too long, we could double that. That is a dangerous, dangerous situation. That we didn't even talk about the wind potential. That's still with us as well. Remember, our center's down here and headed generally towards Marathon, maybe just north of there. Fort Lauderdale gusting to 31 right now, and you have to assume that the winds are significantly stronger in that squall, in that band that's going to be coming through. It's not necessarily the sustained winds that matter for, say, tree damage. It is the gust. These grounds are saturated. The tree roots are completely surrounded by water now. One good gust comes in, trees are going to fall. We're going to start to have more power outages. In fact, we've already started to see those power outage numbers ramping up. Look at as far north as Stewart now, gusting to 43. Orlando, it's barely drizzling, gusting to 31. So that's the trend that we're watching through the rest of the day. We may be watching it for the rest of the week. Now, we get a little bit of a break as this thing bends back down towards West Cuba, stops, turns around, maybe has a hurricane by that point, and comes back towards Florida by the end of the week. So, Mike, we've got a long way to go before we're done with the risks to Florida.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on all week long. Mark, thank you for that. Here's the latest on what we know. A state of emergency has been declared for 8 counties in Florida. That includes Monroe County and the Florida Keys. More than 35,000 are without power right now in South Florida, and Key West International Airport closing tonight in 1 hour at 9 o'clock. Let's get you to meteorologist Mike Seidel. He's live in Miami Beach for us, where multiple effects from Tropical Storm Eta are on the table for us tonight. Mike, in particular, we think flooding.
Yes, and in particular, as Mark Elliott just showed us, we've been showing you for several hours, it's all north of here in Broward County and southern Palm Beach County. That fire hose continues, and we now have that flash flood warning through about the rest of this evening. We could easily see another 12 inches, a total of 12 inches of rain, not another 12 inches of rain. Mentioned earlier, Fort Lauderdale's already had over 85 inches of rain this year. They're way, way above average. Helped along by the 14 inches last month, and that's why we were concerned about things getting kind of gnarly with power outages. In this case, we're talking about a palm frond. That's about 10 feet long. But if it comes down on a power line, it can take out the power. So that's one of the reasons, certainly, we're getting some of these power outage reports, 35,000 in Florida, most of those in Broward, and here in Miami-Dade County. Show you what we've seen this evening here off Collins Avenue, Ocean Drive, and South Beach. The rain coming and going. We've had a couple of pretty good squalls, but then we get a big break like we're getting right now. Just some light rain. We really haven't had any heavy rain here for about 45 minutes to an hour, so we've had a nice break. It's all been up to our north, and that's where it's been really focused. So we'll keep you updated. The flood watch does go till Tuesday, although the brunt of the rain will fall overnight tonight into Monday morning. Mike?
All right, let's get you caught up on what we know right now about the state of Florida preparing and bracing for the impact of Eta. Jared Moskowitz is the director for the Florida Division of Emergency Management, joins us now live. Jared, thanks for being with us. What are your plans here to tackle this tropical storm?
Sure. So, I mean, look, it's just like any other storm that we've dealt with here. We execute, the plannings that we've been doing year round in the years past. So, this is a little bit of a what we call a trashier storm in that it's an unorganized tropical storm. We're worried, obviously, about significant loss of power just by limbs falling on the power lines. South Florida was been inundated with water for the last month. And getting, somewhere between 10 and 15 inches of rain, a lot of these trees are just going to come down on power lines. So we're very concerned with that. So, we're ready to respond with food, water, and ice. We've helped, the local governments help open up their shelters with staff. We've also supplied rapid tests So obviously we continue to mitigate against COVID-19 as we open up shelters, as we've been, executing on those plans since, March and April when we put those into place. We've been talking obviously to FPL, the power company. They got 10,000 crews ready to go. 50,000 people had lost power throughout the day, already been restored. We have less than 1% of the people in a bunch of counties without power. So, we'll continue to monitor the situation. Obviously, there's going to be, significant flooding in some areas just due to the previous inundation and the amount of rain that we're going to get in a short period of time. And so, we'll monitor it and we'll continue to support local governments with generators or pumps, whatever they need.
Yeah, and Jared, you mentioned that it's a messy storm, right? It's not just one area that you're watching. With this squeeze play, high pressure to the north, low pressure near the Keys. How many of the communities and the mayors and the emergency managers in, say, northern and north central Florida are reaching out for any guidance, considering that their winds could be in that 40-mile-per-hour range as well?
Yeah, look, everyone's paying attention to this. Obviously we take every storm seriously, but compared to what we've dealt with here in the state of Florida, whether it's COVID-19, Michael, Irma, Matthew, Hermine, almost Dorian, we've had enough experience to deal with a tropical storm both here and with our local emergency management directors. Obviously, in this storm, as it comes across the Keys, the folks in Monroe County, they're always they're the lowest point in the United States, so they always get battle with these sort of things. But as it comes across and gets into the Gulf of Mexico, obviously we're significantly concerned about the potential strengthening. I know a lot of the guidance doesn't show that, but we really want people to pay attention to this storm. The Gulf of Mexico has not been kind this year, seen a lot of intensification, and sometimes the models don't pick up on that. So we're really worried about Tampa Bay, Big Bend, the Panhandle area, if that storm strengthens and gets into that, Thursday, Friday.
Well, Jared, let me ask you about the west coast of Florida. We've been largely spared so far, this year. If this thing gets back into the Gulf of Mexico, re-intensifies, what are the challenges for a place with heavy population like Tampa, St. Pete?
Yeah, look, in the tied for most active hurricane seasons, Florida did not have a landfall. I thought that we were going to get through November, but obviously there are other plans. Looks like we're going to have a landfall up there. So look, obviously, we want to make sure that if we can, that this hurricane stays away from the areas that are still obviously recovering from Hurricane Michael, and most importantly, right now the areas recovering from Hurricane Sally. So, obviously we don't want it to hit our vulnerable areas that are still recovering from previous hurricanes. We don't want it to go anywhere, quite frankly. But I don't think this is going to dissipate in the Gulf of Mexico. Hopefully we don't see that intensification. Hopefully it doesn't hit great population centers. But it looks like Florida is going to be dealing with a double impact in the next week.
All right, Jared Moskowitz, thanks for being with us. Let's turn now to Mark. Let's break down some of the models here, Mark. What we're expecting with this storm, how it could play out, what the atmospheric steering pattern is out there that pushes this thing along.
Yeah, and unfortunately, although we have some steering currents right now, I think we lose a lot of that through the atmosphere as we go through the next couple of days. And so we're just going to be following this, meandering its way, kind of family circus cartoon style, through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, skipping and jumping its way eventually maybe back towards Florida. In the short term, the conveyor belt of tropical moisture is actually focused in on South Florida. Be prepared for more flash flood warnings there, and really more, even the quick spin-up tornadoes because of that. That's the moisture that gets kind of cut off, and we still have this kind of ball, this area of tropical moisture feed that is within otherwise a reasonably hostile environment by the early portion of the week. Dry air surrounding it, and yet it may be able to fend some of that off and hold its own. If it doesn't completely succumb to the dry air wrapping in and around that core of tropical moisture, then we have an opportunity to kind of regain over the eastern Gulf, because there will be nothing moving it on until maybe late in the week when the jet stream decides to drop south again. And that could then turn our hurricane to then tropical storm and move it north. It is a big if. Some of the models are now saying we may be missed by the next one too. This is a look at some of the tropical guidance. Look at the new GFS. Oh boy, it was missed by the next front and next trough that comes through. It'll still be meandering to some degree, maybe not tropical by that point, but an old swirl that used to be tropical in the Gulf with an old front nearby, that's something we got to watch this time of year. There is some support for that as well using the European ensemble members. Here's a look at the European model coming out of the Keys down towards West Cuba, starts organizing once again late Monday into Tuesday. Maybe a little bit lopsided, but still a lot of tropical moisture on that east side. Don't forget, Florida's on the east side. When it comes in, that means North Florida will be on the east side of that, bringing all that moisture in. And quickly, I do want to show you what that new run of the USGFS looks like. You know, it's not the strongest storm now, and the USGFS is picking up on that. Waits until, say, late Tuesday or Wednesday to start to organize. Here comes that front, right? There's that next thing that's going to try to pull this north. Maybe a little piece of it does, and then it's left behind and starts going west again. A far cry from what it was, but Mike, I do always want to caution people that once you have an old swirl, an old low near the Gulf and near an old front, you can get more intensification. That is something that then next weekend we may still be following.
It's amazing how long we'll be following this thing and what it could end up doing. Mark, thank you. Back to Fort Lauderdale we go, one of the hardest hit towns tonight. It has just been hour after hour of rain. We've had 4 to 6 inches of rain around Fort Lauderdale, and now another big slug coming in there, not to mention the risk for severe weather as well. Within these bands, you could get quick spin-ups of tornadoes. We've got a Torcon of 3 tonight, Key Largo, Miami, up toward Broward County here, but a 2 to 3 on our Torcon. Low chances of tornadoes, but there's still a chance for tornadoes. Right front quadrant, it'd be this quadrant right in here, is the one that we'd be watching for severe weather to happen. So as the system pushes off to the west, then the right front quadrant pushes off to the west as well. So South Florida, we're going to be in that risk zone. What are the ingredients that we're looking at? Primarily, it's wind shear in the atmosphere. We talk a lot about this when it comes to severe weather and tornadoes in the plains, in the Midwest, the Southeast, during the springtime. But here it is, a change in wind speed and direction with height. So at the surface, winds mostly at this point are out of the east, pretty strong out of the east. Let's go up 5,000 feet. Winds turn out of the south a little bit more, southeast a little bit more, and they're stronger. So we have speed shear and we have directional shear in the atmosphere, and that could be enough to get some brief tornado spin-ups to happen for us here. A lot of times they'll be embedded within some of these squalls, like these are being modeled tonight. They'd be fairly quick tornadoes. They may not last very long. They might not be very big, but they can do plenty of damage if they come over a populated location and they hit a neighborhood, right? Still looking for more squally weather throughout the overnight. Here we are at midnight, more squally storms here that could produce severe weather. And then look at that big line there. That's one I'd be worried about overnight tonight, 4 o'clock in the morning. People are sleeping. You're not necessarily aware. Make sure that you have your phone nearby and you have the mobile weather alerts turned on. Those emergency messages will alert you on your phone if there's maybe a tornado warning, then you can get to a safe location in your home. Or maybe think about sleeping in that safe location tonight, an interior room that's away from windows. That might be a safe bet for you. Even in the morning, even though the low's way over here, look at the squall line still hitting us across South Florida, even working their way up into Central Florida. I want you to stick around for our special coverage tonight as Tropical Storm Eta heads through South Florida and the Florida Keys. We'll be tracking this one all week. We get you back to South Florida with a live report from Miami Beach after this.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we. Get the information you need to stay safe every day, right here on the Weather Channel.
Welcome back to the Weather Channel. We continue our coverage of Tropical Storm Eta. next advisory from the Hurricane Center in about 90 minutes, just before 10 a.m. Eastern. I should say 10 p.m. Eastern. And we'll get the latest track update. One thing is for certain, it's going to cross the Keys overnight tonight, probably around the Middle Keys, Almorada up towards, say, Tamarack and those areas, and then get back into the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, you can see on the radar, the Keys are one of the drier spots in the southern part of the state of Florida. But look at that rainfall and that moisture coming into Broward County and southern Palm Beach County. We've got a flash flood warning until 11:45 tonight. Some areas have already had 6 to 8 inches of rain. We've had a water rescue in Lauderhill. And look off the coast. There's another nasty squall. It's going to train right over basically the same area. So we're going to have issues here into the early hours of Monday morning. South of there, down where we are in Miami Beach and South Beach, we haven't had much of anything in the past hour or so. So things are looking good in the short term. But again, we've got a long way to go. And the flood watch actually goes till Tuesday, because even though Eta is going to pull away, we're still going to have the wraparound. We'll see how much of the rain and thunderstorms we get on those tails that come in from the south and southeast. So Mark Elliott, it's all about Broward and southern Palm Beach County right now. That's where it's all been since mid-afternoon. Just a few squalls down here. And we've had 3 inches of rain here versus the airport in Fort Lauderdale now over 6.5.
Yeah,
so that puts it in perspective.
And still pouring there with more to come, Mike. You were right about that squall, that line off the coast. It means business. The next couple hours are going to be pretty telling. Hopefully you can be in your safe spot already and just wait for that to go through. Want to talk a little bit about the wind component. Mike was talking about the rain component. They're tied together. And so the big caveat to this map that I'm showing you, which is created by the different local National Weather Service offices, about the kind of the worst case possible scenario here for wind, is that it's really focused on the tropical winds and the squeeze play, the pressure gradient winds, less about some temporary winds in a thunderstorm squall. And that could really increase the wind potential in that corridor where we've got that line of storms coming in. Otherwise, near our center could get hurricane force winds just north of there up to 60, and a huge area of 40-mile-per-hour winds or higher over the next day to really the next week, as that pressure gradient is still going to be at play, and then our storm comes back in. So again, here's the center of our low. There's the center of our tropical storm of Eta coming through, headed towards the Keys. Much less fanfare there than we have in this band, as Mike mentioned. And again, talking about the wind component there, that heavy rain comes down through the higher levels of our atmosphere where there's more wind and pushes that down to the surface. So yes, we've got the flood warnings, but I'm also concerned about the wind gust potential with that line of storms that's coming through. Right now, West Palm Beach is gusting to near 40. It's much calmer near Key West. You're much closer to the center. No gusts being reported there, 17 miles per hour. You get up near those bands coming through near West Palm, near Fort Lauderdale, and you're gusting above 40 miles per hour already. Why is it so breezy outside of those bands? Let's say the Space Coast or Jacksonville or Orlando. Well, that's all because of the pressure gradient. That pressure gradient force, the difference in pressure with distance is what gives us wind. And with that, flow going from high to low pressure with a little bit of spin of the earth thrown in, we're going to have that onshore flow through the Carolinas, coastal Georgia, and Florida for the next several days. And that will keep the water levels up a little bit. It will also keep the breezy conditions going. Here's a look at the National Hurricane Center forecast track. Here comes our center down to as far as, West Cuba again. So you get a little bit of a break in Florida, although notice that pressure gradient wind is still pointed towards Jacksonville Tuesday. And then our center comes back in, and Mike, the winds come with it. So we could really be quite gusty even towards the end of this upcoming week.
Imagine having to deal with that kind of wind for this long. Not to mention it was really windy last week. Mark, thanks for that. We take you off to Key West, Florida. 76 degrees right now with cloudy skies overhead. Getting pretty breezy for us this evening. The winds really crank for you tonight and tomorrow as Eta basically comes right over top of the Keys, makes a westward track, and then maybe even dives south a little bit. All right, Key West, let's walk you through your forecast. Winds tomorrow, 35 to 40 here, 82 with some thunderstorms that are heading in for you. Just watch for those. And then just gradually we step down the winds here Tuesday and Wednesday as the system gets a little bit farther away, but it could still stay windy later in the week. Maybe not as bad as it is right now. When you look at some of these winds, you're like, man, it is not a fun night. You're right, it is not. got Homestead gusting to 33, Miami, our gusts are 35, Lauderdale, our winds right now are gusting to 40, so really nasty conditions for us tonight across South Florida, not to mention we've got the really heavy rain that's been hitting us in places like Lauderdale and Palm Beach counties, or Broward and Palm Beach counties. There's a look at the heavy rain here for us across South Florida, another 3 to 5 inches to come with some pockets that could be a little bit heavier than that. Lighter rain as you go farther north as the system treks its way east and south. How about Miami? Our forecast the next 2 days still very breezy for us, unfortunately. More thunderstorms, then gradually the winds backing off, although still staying relatively stormy for at least the next 5 days. Mark?
And with that long duration event, we're still covering Eta for you. This is just the beginning of our live coverage of Tropical Storm Eta, making that brush with South Florida tonight. We've seen the flood warning start to ramp up. Hopefully no more water rescues needed, and hopefully you're in a safe place and you can just stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll show you what it looks like out there. And then the rest of the week, where does this go after exiting the Keys? We break it all down for you coming up right here.
I drive a Pacifica.
Special coverage for you here tonight on the Weather Channel as we track Tropical Storm Eta for you. I'm Mike Bettish, joined by storm specialist Mark Elliott tonight, and also by meteorologist Mike Seidel, who is in Miami Beach, Florida for us. Let's take you to Fort Lauderdale, a particularly hard-hit location tonight. High surf advisory, tropical storm and flood watches in effect here. High rip current risk remains in effect, and we have a flash flood warning in effect until 11:45 tonight. That's for Broward County and Palm Beach County. You can see the winds are up for us tonight. They've been gusting over 40 miles an hour. 4 to 6 inches of rain has fallen. And Mark, we've got another really ominous looking thunderstorm band setting up for Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, a couple of those bands have some rotation off the coast, so we're following the potential at least for some fast moving spin up tropical induced tornadoes. And then gosh, the rainfall rates are just bonkers in those bands. 1, 2, maybe even 3 inches per hour, at least in the instantaneous rainfall rates. And some of those are going to be over places for an hour or more. And so you could really bring up those rainfall totals in a big way. Right now, we're looking at Tropical Storm Eta as of the 7 o'clock advisory, 65 mile per hour top winds. The center is down here, making its way towards the Keys. What we're more concerned, at least in the short term, about is these bands that are headed towards, say, Fort Lauderdale, headed towards West Palm, headed towards Boynton and Boca. So let's get a little bit closer in. We're following some of these storms, like this one right in here. It's really racing, right? That one's now over Homestead. It had a special advisory on it for the chance for some rotation. That risk is basically done in that southern band. It is not done in this northern band, which is really stealing the headlines. Flash flood warning over Broward and Palm Beach. It's raining there steadily again right now. And look at all these flood reports that are starting to come in. Here's Boca. Here's Fort Lauderdale. The airport is right here. Water up to 3/4 up the car wheel wells. The airport kind of perimeter road near the cell phone lot is closed because of water over the roadway. And then you look at this long band of rain that's coming towards Fort Lauderdale. Within here, there are also embedded circulations. There's one right about in here, and there's another waiting in the wings. So not only are we talking about much heavier rainfall rates and the chance for more flooding, but we also have that risk of a tornado threat as well. This is on top of the 5 to 8 inches of rain that's already fallen in this area today, Mike. So gosh, it is a really scary scenario when you think about how much rain is still coming. Yeah. That band will also have very strong winds with it, gusting well over 40 miles per hour into Fort Lauderdale. West Palm also over 40. So, Mike, that band is stealing the headlines right now, even as the center is headed towards the Keys.
You know, a lot of rain starting to fill in there in South Florida. So let's go to Miami Beach, where meteorologist Mike Seidel is for us tonight. Mike, ultimately, you know, we're now getting these flood warnings. We're getting high water rescues. It's becoming a more dire situation tonight in South Florida.
Yeah, and we're in between that band that's hitting Broward County and southern Palm Beach County. Fort Lauderdale is only about a 30 to 40-minute drive north of where we are here in South Beach. And then you look on the radar and you see the circulation, and that band's going to come into southern Miami-Dade County. I'm not saying it's not going to rain here the rest of tonight by any means, but right now we're in that area where it's dry, and that dry air is wrapping in right where we're standing. We haven't had really any rain, any significant rain now for about 90 minutes. It's been breezy, yes, and if you look on the radar, there's some pretty good rains coming in just to our north. So for now, we're going to be dry, or mostly dry here at this end of Miami Beach, but as you get up towards the Broward County line, and all bets are off. We'll show you the flooding from Broward County, and we've had a water rescue, at least one water rescue out of Lauderhill, and notice the water covering everything. You know, and I did see a report of waist-deep water. This is what we call urban or flash flooding, and the reason we're getting this is because of the rainfall that's coming over the same area. You know, we see this without a tropical system. A lot of times we have slow-moving upper or mid to upper level winds. The steering currents are slow, and then we just train those storms over the same area. Many times we see that during the warmer months of the year. Here it is, tropical season continuing into mid-November, and the flash flooding continues. And as we've been mentioning, that flash flood warning for Broward and southern Palm Beach County goes until 11:45, at least until 11:45 tonight, because that other band is still coming in. Power outages, let me give you the latest on the power outages in the state of Florida. They've been adding up right now. Oh, wow, 49,000 power outages. Most of those are right here in the southeast part of the state, Martin County, Palm Beach, and especially in Broward and Miami-Dade County.
Well, Tropical Storm Eta has taken a fairly peculiar path over the course of the past week or so, first hitting in Central America and now hitting here in North America. You know, one thing we've seen is some really heavy rain totals, but let's take you back to last week when this thing was really starting to ramp up here. It got us going in the Caribbean, which is a hot spot this time of year. And then it ramped all the way up to a Category 4 before landfall in Nicaragua. This thing had a really intense eye to it. It just took off like that. Then produced storm surge flooding, produced rainfall flooding, intense winds at the coastline. Then through the mountainous region here, ended up becoming degraded here down to a tropical depression, but then starting to reform out here into the Caribbean. So through then Friday, it produced a ton of rain across Central America, in some places as much as 30 inches before reemerging off the coastline. One thing we've seen is a huge amount of rain, and some of these kind of scenes are just unbelievable. There you go. You've got people being rescued by a jet ski off their roof. Literally, that's how high the water is. People, their dogs, tragic scene for sure. At least 21 people we know have died in Honduras as a result of Eta. The largest death toll, unfortunately, is in Guatemala, and I think this is just scary stuff here. Look at this rescue helicopter literally just hovering right at the roof line of this building here as people are being airlifted out of there. People have to get to higher ground because the water comes up so fast in some of these river valleys. The rain from Eta after this then triggers a massive mudslide in the central mountains here. The Army there says they believe the slide has buried 150 homes. Heartbreaking to see how it's played out, the natural disaster that has unfolded there, but pushing its way west through the Caribbean, into Central America, back out into the Caribbean, coming eastbound again, and then taking a turn off to the north. This has been Eta's history. It's been a very unusual track here, and it's about to get even more unusual. So here we go through Cuba today, and now sitting right here in the Florida Straits. Now, Eta prompting numerous flash flood warnings in Puerto Rico, as well as the storms have reached way over into the Caribbean as well. Let's show you some new video we have into the Weather Channel of the raging waters here in Puerto Rico. Look at this. This is in Las Piedras, and you can see just how intense the rain has been to create flooding scenes like this. Rising water, such a concern. A lot of flash flood warnings today in Puerto Rico. Now making its way very, very close to the Florida Keys, and that's a look right now at Key Largo, where the rain is really pouring down for us right now. Winds likely to gust maybe upwards of 50 miles per hour. All right, so big concerns for us tonight with the possibility of some power outages. They're going up in South Florida tonight. No reason to think they may not here in the Keys as well, Mark. But you take a look at this track. west, then north, then east, then back north again. Now we're going to go west again.
We are. It is. It's like the old Family Circus cartoons where the kid is going all over the neighborhood and you see the path in the dotted line. We've got that going on again tonight because this meandering is not going to end anytime soon. In fact, that westward jog for the next 12 to 24, maybe 48 hours is the most consistent part of the track that we'll have over the next several days. After that, it's a kind of all bets are off kind of thing once again, where your guess is as good as mine where this thing wanders to next. Before we get into where this goes next, I do want to show you this. So this is the water vapor imagery. The look at the mid and upper level moisture amounts. What we're lacking here is those bright green or even yellow colors. We don't have a lot of moisture near that core. If we don't get a big blow up of thunderstorms there, then maybe it's suggesting that this dry air nearby is going to choke this thing off and we could say goodbye to this sooner rather than later. I also want to point out that this large envelope of higher amounts of moisture is not necessarily related to our tropical storm. It's indirectly related, sure, but it's not necessarily associated with the core that we are following. So we could have very squally weather, say, through the northern Caribbean, including the flash flooding that we've had in Puerto Rico. There is more action there. Notice how much more moisture there is heading towards Puerto Rico than we have headed towards the Keys. That is telling with this disorganized type of system. After the Keys, we're going to go west and then bend south, maybe as far south and west as the western side of Cuba once again. It feels like we just came from there, right? And if it does, it's because we have. This is just one of those meandering tracks. Came up through Cuba, central Cuba, now going west again, a little bit south, and then we put the brakes on again. We'll talk more about the long-term changes through the eastern Gulf coming up. But in the short term, we know that we're going to have that little ball of tropical moisture in the southern and southeastern Gulf of Mexico if it can sustain and kind of fend off some of that dry air. We lose the steering currents. High pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, nothing moving it nearby. The jet stream is actually a big ridge, right? It's all the way up in Canada. Until this next trough swings in, which won't be until the end of the upcoming week, there's nothing to start to tug this north again. So you look at some of the high resolution models, and we've got this low that then comes down towards Cuba, starts to organize again Monday into Tuesday as it's fended off some of that dry air. And then look at this, starts going north again. That means bands of tropical moisture can continue on and off through Florida, Mike, for the next 5 to 7 days.
It's amazing to think how long we could be dealing with this and how long it's already stuck around. Could be one of the longest track November hurricanes that we've ever seen. Let's show you some of the key locations that we're watching. That does include down through the Keys, 35 to 40 mile per hour winds in Key West for us. Tomorrow, thunderstorms in our forecast, and then gradually the winds begin to back off as we go through the week. But it is still a pretty rough night tonight and a pretty rough day tomorrow. Look at some of these winds in Fort Lauderdale, gusts at 39. In Okmulgee here, winds gusting to 32, 31 in Homestead, and 35 in Miami. As far as the heavy rain goes, still a ton to go. And we may actually even see a bigger core right through here, right near Fort Lauderdale, because that band is already setting up. Another one's going to come in here in Miami, but some spots where we get another 3 to 5 inches to come. Miami, there's our forecast, 30 to 35 mile per hour winds as we go through tomorrow. They start to back off through the week, but 5 days of thunderstorms and rain in your forecast. More continuing coverage of Tropical Storm Eta still to come as the system bears down on the Florida Keys tonight.
I drive a
All right, welcome back, everyone, as we track Tropical Storm Eta for you tonight. Boy, we've gotten hit hard tonight in places like Broward County and Fort Lauderdale. That's a live look right now where it is pouring rain. You've already had in some places half a foot of rain and some very gusty winds gusting over 40 miles an hour. Big concern for you tonight from Miami through Hollywood and Fort Lauderdale and West Palm for the heavy rain that's happening. Tropical Storm Eta is a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm right now. Northwest movement at 14, likely going to go over the Keys here in the next couple of hours for us tonight. But you can see the circulation center. It's right in there. It seems like it's taking its good old time getting through the Keys tonight. But this is the real big concern right here. This training thunderstorm lining up in the Atlantic and making a beeline for Fort Lauderdale. I mean, really right at Fort Lauderdale. We could get another 3 or 4 inches out of this particular line. Special marine warning, including some spins in there that might produce some brief tornadoes, not to mention an intense amount of rain. You can see little swirls in there, nothing major, but brief tornado spin-ups are possible for us tonight. I think one of the biggest concerns, however, is the flash flooding, and we have had high water rescues happening for us this evening. Broward and Palm Beach County under flash flood warning until 11:45, and I would not even be a bit surprised if they even extend that well beyond 11:45 tonight. Look at some of the radar estimates here, pushing now 5 to 8 inches of rain this evening, and it is not out of the realm of possibility. There can be some isolated spots where 10 inches of rain falls today. There's a look at the wind, so it's insult to injury. At Fort Lauderdale, gusting to 40, Miami gusting to 35, and through the Keys, even though you might get the center that comes right over you, you might actually get some of the better weather out of this system. So it's remarkable to see, Mark, all the issues that we've got on the north side of this. Big concerns in Broward County tonight.
Yeah, and yet that is still a fairly well-organized swirl. There's definitely a center there to that low, which means once it's over the warm waters, the loop current of the Gulf of Mexico and that warm water from the Caribbean that exits through the Florida Straits, there's an opportunity for some reorganization with some very poor steering currents. Poor in that there are almost none. High pressure to the east, high pressure to the west. This thing's just going to meander its way through the Gulf. Maybe getting picked up by the next dip in our jet stream as what will then be a hurricane in theory, according to the forecast, then goes back to tropical storm and pulled back north. But some of the models are missing that next dip in the jet stream as well, and this thing still is going to be meandering through the Gulf. So that is something to watch. No matter what, I think we're going to have a lot of tropical moisture on that east side of the circulation, which means Florida and portions of the southeast will have an enhanced chance for more rains over the next couple of days. This is a look at the National Hurricane Center forecast track. That's that big red area, just an incongruous blob at this point, right? Because it's just barely moving through the end of the week. Many of the models go out towards, say, the western side of Cuba and then start getting pulled north and away. But a couple, including some good, reliable global models like our own USGFS, starts going that way and gets dropped. It gets left behind, and that center then goes westbound again. A disorganized swirl, but has that potential of going west. Some of the European ensemble members are also picking up on this trend. In fact, the European model all along has been much slower. This is 10 days of motion. Wherever you see one of those gray circles, that is a 10-day movement from where it was earlier today in northern Cuba to where it ends 10 days from now. Gosh, many of them are still over the northern and eastern side of the Gulf of Mexico. Bottom line, Mike, even if this is sheared and disorganized and lopsided, that is where all the people are there. And so more rain could still be dragged through Florida for the next week or so.
And that's the, and even if this thing goes toward like the Big Bend or the West Coast, that's an area that's really remained unscathed so far this hurricane season, remarkably. All right, we show you we've got a state of emergency in 8 different counties here in Florida. And you take a look at Raleigh, because we could have some influence from Eta, but also a pretty potent cold front that comes through, okay? Tonight, you'll see temperatures drop down into the 50s, back into the 70s tomorrow, and actually very close to 80 degrees by Tuesday. Remarkable warmth for November. No question about that. So here we go. Tuesday, a nice day, 79. It's shorts and T-shirts kind of weather. In comes the front. You could actually have 2 days of thunderstorms with that. And late in the week, could we actually combine some of that frontal moisture with Eta? It's possible. We don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but it's going to be unsettled later in the week. So there's that front that comes through. A lot of moisture is pulled northbound. We'll see heat and humidity all the way into New England, believe it or not. Very strong Bermuda high here, really with rotation around that, bringing in abnormally warm air for this time of year. You know, a lot of us this time of year, you're almost thinking about, well, could we get some snow maybe even? But I mean, maybe a little early for snow, but you're not thinking about this, are you? Notice that we've got 3 to 5 inches in pockets here across the Carolinas in particular. Worried about the areas where we have some hills and some elevation here. That would include the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina into Virginia, and we don't need any more rain. This is an area where we've got very saturated soil right now, so flooding will be a concern. Tuesday, here come the rain and storms, a little bit more scattered in nature. They get more organized as we go later in the week. Now we go Wednesday. Front's going to sit right back in here, and all the storms are out ahead of that. Thursday and Friday, similar, just shifted ever so slightly to the east. Well, we want you to stick around. We have live team coverage from the Sunshine State tonight as Tropical Storm Eta approaches South Florida in the hours ahead. Up next, it's Jackie Jarris, Mike Seidel, and our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb. Have a good night.
Before Nexium,
Tropical Storm Eta is bearing down on South Florida right now. Hurricane warnings are up for the Keys, and from Miami to Naples, the rest of South Florida under hurricane watch. Tropical storm warning as well. Our meteorologist Mike Seidel is in Miami Beach right now. Mike. We'll get back to our Mike Seidel if we can connect with him, but you can see on the images on your right that it is a windy and rainy and dangerous night in South Florida, where we've got a lot of heavy rainfall and some flash flooding problems, and the system is only going to get closer to the Keys as the night goes on, and conditions will probably go downhill even further in southern Florida. Now we do have our Mike Seidel, who's in South Florida. Mike, how are the conditions there? Because I know they're getting a little bit worse up in Broward County.
Yeah, it's a lot different up to the north. It's a whole different animal. We've had hardly any rain here for the past couple of hours, Dr. Knabb. We've had some gusty winds, that's for sure. Look at the radar. We're squeezed between the band around the center, which is now getting ready to go across the Keys in the overnight hours, and that outer band that's been like a fire hose of rain into Broward and southern Palm Beach counties. We have a flash flood warning in those areas until at least 11:45. That may be extended, and you can see more heavy rain coming right in to those same areas. We're talking about Pompano down towards Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood. We've had water rescues and radar estimates and local estimates of 8 to 10 inches of rain. I just checked the Fort Lauderdale airport, and they've had another 2/3 of an inch of rain. They're up officially at the airport around 7 inches of rain so far, and there is a lot more to come. So in the meantime, the flood watch will continue to Tuesday, because we may get some more trailing feeder bands in the area Monday night, and Tuesday. But by and large, the worst of the rain is going to be overnight and tomorrow morning here in South Florida. We've already had over 35,000 customers lose power because of these gusty winds, 40 to 50 miles an hour. So Dr. Knabb, where we're sitting, it's not too bad, but we're going to be squeezed in here, and we're eventually going to get some more squally weather here in South Beach. But as you mentioned, all the action right now is up in Broward County and southern Palm Beach County with Eta.
Yeah, Mike, this system is very north loaded. The maximum winds and the heaviest rain, even some lightning in there, are well to the north of where the center is, even though the center is south of where Mike is, headed toward the Keys. But Broward County has been getting the bulk of the heaviest rain over the last 24 hours, as you saw. I'll detail that in a little bit. Eta, the last advisory is a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. We're going to get another advisory from the Hurricane Center within the hour. New track and intensity forecast. And again, for the state of Florida, Eta is going to be hanging pretty close by all week long. Yes, it will make some distance from the Keys over the next couple of days, but then it'll probably come back toward the peninsula. So Florida Peninsula is going to be on the windier, wetter side of this system for quite a while to come. Now, it is not a fully tropical setup. Upper level trough, upper level lows kind of overhead, bringing some dry air into this, but that is what is making it so lopsided to the north. right? Look at all in the visible imagery with the radar. You can see it's a very well-defined area of central circulation, but most of the rain and cloudiness is off to the side, off to the north side. The south side over Cuba, it's already cleared out, even though it's still pretty windy. This was the visible imagery before we lost the last visible images of the day, and you can see these overshooting tops that have now translated into this band, which has rotated around to the northeast side. So there's the center of circulation headed toward the Keys. But you go about 100 miles north of that center, and that's where the heaviest rain and strongest winds have been over the last while. Look at Fort Lauderdale recently gusting to 41, not gusting quite as high in Miami-Dade County or down in the Florida Keys. West Palm Beach recently gusting to 43 miles an hour. Now here's that flash flood warning that was issued a little while ago, and it is in effect till 11:45 p.m., and they just reissued it, basically updated it with the tag that triggered the wireless emergency alerts in that area. This is a stay off the roads warning. Seriously, folks, this could be a life-threatening situation. We've already had several inches of rain. Some of you have gotten more than half a foot right there in central and southern Broward County. And Mike Seidel, we've had a report in Hollywood, Florida, so far today exceeding 10 inches of rain, just a few miles north of you. So it's amazing how these big systems still, when you get down to the local level, just a few miles makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's the mesoscale, because we've had 3 inches for the entire storm, and they've had, 2 to 3 inches in an hour. It's a half an hour or so drive up to Fort Lauderdale, Dr. Neb. And looking at the radar, we are going to get more heavy rain here in South Beach. That is a given, and I just saw the update on the power outages here in Florida. Now up to 47,000 customers. Half of those are in Broward County. That doesn't surprise me. They've had the consistent wind gust between about 40 and 45 miles an hour. And I mentioned this earlier. Here's one of the reasons we're getting power outages. This is what we call your basic palm frond, and it comes down and takes out power lines or causes them to arc and knocks out the power. And with the wind still gusting in the 40s overnight, even tomorrow we're going to have gusts over 30. It's going to be a while before they can really get the bucket trucks back up safely to get some of this power back on. So power outages continuing to mount. Now we're not talking hundreds of thousands like we've had in previous hurricanes, but again, if your power is out, it's not a good thing. Let's go back to Atlanta. We're going back to, I believe, Jackie Jarris?
Yes.
Yes, Jackie Jarris. Good evening.
Well, good evening to you, Mike Seidel. Great report. Thanks so much. We've been talking about all that rainfall that's mainly been to the north of where our Mike Seidel is, and we've had some very dangerous flooding from Eta as a result in parts of South Florida. So joining us on the phone right now is Lauderhill, Florida Fire Public Information Officer Jerry Gonzalez. Sir, thanks so much for being with us today.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Sounds like things not so great where you are. We've got rainfall estimates of 7 to 10 inches. How widespread is the flooding in your area?
It is really bad right now. We've had nonstop rain for about 6-7 hours straight right now, with very few breaks. And the roads and the canals are basically have merged into one.
Is this intersections? Is this streets? Is this getting into homes?
So we have multiple streets and intersections. One vehicle just recently, about an hour and a half ago, actually fell in the canal with an adult male in the vehicle. The male was pulled out of the vehicle, and he is in critical condition at the hospital at this time. But again, we're just reminding the public, if you do not see the streets and just turn around. Definitely do not drown. Just turn around. Don't go outside if you don't need to right now.
Yeah, the visibility is so poor, not only because it's nightfall, but also the rainfall has been so terribly heavy. Are there barricades up? Are there areas that are blocked off?
Correct. It's so widespread right now. We're trying to catch up, but yes, there's barricades that are coming up. Lauderhill is a small community just west of Fort Lauderdale, and there's tons of canals and there's tons of areas. And yes, we are trying to mobilize all that right now.
Since so many streets have been taking on water, I know you mentioned the one water rescue. Have there been others, or are there vehicles submerged across the area?
Oh, definitely. We've had multiple calls already of people trapped in their vehicles, water rising into their vehicles. We've had to come out and assist a good amount of people already to come out.
And I imagine at this point the water is still going up?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh,
Captain?
I hear you now. Okay. Yep.
Okay, yeah, we are looking at some video right now. I think this is south of you in the Miami area, showing the flooded intersections. What kind of advice do you have to people in your area here tonight?
definitely telling people if they do not get out right now, they need to stay in their homes. Do not, if they don't need to, if there's not an emergency or if they don't need to go out to work right now, definitely stay in your homes. The situation on the road is very bad right now. We urge people to please stay in their homes right now.
All right, we know you've got a busy night here ahead of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to update our viewers here on the Weather Channel. Captain Jerry Gonzalez with the Lauderhill Fire Department. Thanks so much. So Dr. Knabb, just a good example of how much water is coming down and all kinds of problems that this is causing for tonight. You said it's a do not drive warning out there tonight, and for sure we're seeing that in Lauderhill.
And isn't it amazing, Jackie, how so often tropical storms end up being really bad because of the water. And here's a live look at the southernmost point in Key West. Been to that location many, many times. Now they're on the southern to western side of Eta right now as the center moves toward the Keys. So what's in store water-wise for the Keys in southern Florida? Not just overnight tonight into tomorrow, but the next several days. Again, here's Key West. Here's the center of Eta right in there, moving toward the middle Keys. Key West, your weather will start to go downhill in a little while with a strong northerly wind. But again, this is a very north-loaded system. And as this does not move very quickly as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, how much longer is this rain problem going to last in southern and other parts of Florida? Well, it's not going to get all that far away from Key West here over the next few days as it is forecast to become a hurricane and then come back to the north. So again, Florida, you're going to stay on the wet side of this for a long time. So this flash flood watch goes all the way through Tuesday evening for the time being. Who knows if they might have to extend that. Tonight into tomorrow morning, again here in Broward County is where the greatest risk will continue to be, but there's a lot of you at risk for flash flooding, and I would throw in the Keys as well, where you could have a combination of freshwater and saltwater flooding. Even tomorrow night into Tuesday morning, much of southern and central Florida will have some issues. Now, one thing that could happen is storm surge also, both ahead of this system before it goes by and then on the backside in the Florida Keys primarily. But you see all the way through tomorrow, South Florida and the Keys going to be on this southerly flow as this system moves out farther to the west. And then maybe Tuesday gets a little better. But remind you, we've got a storm surge warning where there is life-threatening, the danger of life-threatening saltwater flooding in the Florida Keys. And you add the rainfall to that, we could have some water problems on the road. So stay off the roads down in the Keys and do whatever the local officials tell you to do. We could have 2 to 4 feet of saltwater flooding above normally dry ground in the Keys, Jackie.
Yeah, and this isn't going to be going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, we are expecting this to slow down, and that means more active weather can be expected across parts of Florida in the days to come as well. You're looking live at Miami right now. You can see the dark skies. Miami, of course, also been getting in on a lot of this rain under a flood warning as we speak. Radar estimating somewhere between 3 and 6 inches of rain has fallen there, especially on the north side of Miami. Then Naples, so you're on the other side of the peninsula there, and Naples, you've been getting off pretty easy in terms of rainfall amounts right now, but your winds are starting to increase. We've got some gusts between 25 and 30 miles per hour here in Naples. You're going to be in that zone to get some heavy rain from time to time, along with those gusty winds here as well. Another threat that we're watching is the risk of a couple of tornadoes, and there's several different areas on radar that I'm seeing showing some mild rotation. So just be aware that even though the risk is there, we don't have a watch in effect right now, but I would not be shocked to get a couple of warnings in the next couple of hours. I think those conditions are more favorable than they have been pretty much all day. Really, this whole area, especially on the southeast coast, as some of these bands come in from the water and work their way onto the shore. So we've got torcons here of 2s and 3s. So those numbers are fairly low, but whenever there's a number, there's a risk, and very common with landfalling tropical systems. And we'll likely get a landfall here somewhere in the Keys, maybe around Marathon in the overnight hours for tonight. As we head into tomorrow, we're going to be watching Eta move farther off towards the west, but we're still going to be getting some of these bands here, and any one of those bands could be producing water spouts, which then turn into tornadoes as they work their way on shore. So all of the Keys, as well as into the Naples area, Everglades City, even Miami, Miami still will be under that risk. So here's what you can expect moving forward, Miami. 30-plus mile per hour wind gusts are already been happening, and we could be seeing some 50-mile-per-hour gusts, especially late tonight into early tomorrow. Rainfall amounts still to come. We could be in that zone where 5 to 8 inches is still on the table. So let's step you through hour by hour. You can see that persistent flow, and so that moisture and the rain is going to continue to come in with these thunderstorms that are going to produce those heavy downpours. This is going to go on and off all night long into tomorrow, through the day here on your Monday as well. And then as Eta pushes off towards the west, notice this is going to be the area. Southwestern parts of Florida will be a little bit more in the zones, and still the Keys looking at that good probability of some heavy downpours to your Monday, through your Monday night, and even into your Tuesday morning here as well. So how much more rainfall can we expect overall across the region? I think a large portion of the area should be planning for an additional 2 to 5 inches of rainfall. And I do think that southeastern coast is going to be in that sweet zone, or that hot spot here through the night into tomorrow. And then we'll watch that focus into southwestern parts of Florida, where 3 to 5 inches of rainfall will be a good possibility. So more flooding is going to be ongoing here. Our flood watch goes through Tuesday afternoon. So keep that in mind. We've got all tomorrow and a good portion of Tuesday to get through before South Florida anyway. We'll start to see some impacts. And then we got to be watching Central Florida, northern parts of Florida, Dr. Nab.
Yeah, we're going to have a tropical storm perhaps coming back to Florida after it maybe spends a little time as a hurricane out in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's take a look at that cone. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a long week in Florida. Tampa, you are in the cone for this one, and later in the week, maybe midweek, your weather could start going downhill. Take a look to your friends to your south, and that's what some of what you could be dealing with. Tampa, it could be in the Wednesday to Thursday time frame that it comes ashore as a tropical storm. Now watch what's going to happen here. The low-level spin is the colors. You see how it gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, still entangled with that upper-level low, but in very weak steering currents. Has to wait for this next ride to pick it up and take it northeastward, but that's going to take a while. It's going to take several days, maybe into Thursday, before it maybe comes ashore, and then finally, whatever is left of it goes up to the mid-Atlantic and takes some tropical moisture with it. But watch how north-loaded this system will remain even into Tuesday and Wednesday. Look at those gusts coming into places like Tampa and the Florida Big Bend, and then winds could make it all the way into the Carolinas. Eta could last more than 2 weeks when all is said and done. We'll be back.
Hurricane season doesn't stop for a pandemic, and neither do we. Get the information you need to stay safe every day, right here on the Weather Channel.
Welcome back to South Beach. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. We have been in the clear right here, this part of South Florida. Amazing. I didn't think it would be this dry for this long, several hours now. But let's go to the radar. We've got two areas to focus in on. One is the center of Eta, which is spinning its way towards the central, I should say the middle Keys around Almorada and down towards the Tavernier area. Yeah, those general areas. Just to the north, you can see the rain band around the center. That's going into Key Largo. They're getting some rain now and some wind, but it's really been the issues up to our north. Let me show you the pictures out of Broward County. The big city there, you may know, is Fort Lauderdale. May have gone there for spring break years ago. And look at the flooding. We've had upwards of 8 to 10 inches of rain based on radar, some local rainfall totals. and the fire hose of moisture is still coming in. We've had waist-deep water, water rescues, cars submerged, and it's not ending. It's just unrelenting because they're not getting a break like we've had here, and you can see how it's just coming right in off the Atlantic. There's bright reds and oranges, and that flash flood warning, by the way, is until 11:45. I would not be surprised if that's extended into the early hours of Monday morning. So that's your main impact area. And as far as power outages go, let me get you the latest numbers. Right now, they have actually come down a little bit. It was 47,000, now down to 44,000 in the state of Florida. They're all pretty much right down here along the southeast coast. So there you go. A lot of rainfall, gusty winds for some of you, but for those of us right here in South Beach, it's been dry for a while. We will get some more rain, though, before this wraps up, Dr. Knapp. That's a guarantee. And it'll be interesting to see tomorrow, Dr. Knapp, once the center gets into the Gulf of Mexico, how many of those tails, how much of that rain comes back in far away from the center from the southeast. I've seen some times where the sun is out, it turns out to be pretty beautiful, a few showers. I've seen other times where it rains more than you would think it would. We'll see how it turns out tomorrow, though.
Yeah, Mike, sometimes it's a little bit of both. Might have some off again, on again rain showers and picking up with the winds, then you get a break, and then it's going to happen again. So that can be dangerous because people get out in between bands and then they get clobbered by another one. So next few days is going to be rough going in Florida. A 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and within the next 30 to 40 minutes, we'll have a new full advisory from the Hurricane Center. But you see how north-loaded this tropical storm is. The max winds, heaviest rain, 7,500 miles north of where the center is. So the Keys is where the center of circulation is going to go, but Broward County has been the center of action. Then this is going to get out into the Gulf, probably eventually strengthen to near that hurricane threshold, and then come northward, northeastward, back toward Florida, probably as a tropical storm. Over the next few days, this is what we can expect. Gusty winds over southern to central Florida, and this might have to be extended northward depending on how strong Eta stays over the Gulf of Mexico. So there's the center of circulation out here headed toward the middle Keys, but this really nasty band has been where the heaviest rain and some of the strongest winds have been, and it's been very, very persistent. Now you notice that the winds are gusting a little bit stronger up here, on the mainland than it is down in the Keys, because all the energy is up to the north. Look at this: West Palm Beach gusting to 43, Boca gusting to 46, and again, here's that stay off the roads warning. That's the main thing you can do to stay safe. There's more heavy rain offshore. We've had in excess of a half a foot of rain, pushing a foot in some portions of Broward County, but then you look at how much it's raining offshore. Jackie, it's raining more than 3 inches per hour in that band that's about to come ashore. Look at these rainfall totals. They've been amazing. And then the recent report in Davie of people in knee-high deep water. Gosh, we got to stay off the roads there.
Yeah,
tonight.
it's just been hours and hours of this nonstop, Dr. Knapp. Also, that main line that you were talking about there, a little squirrely in terms of some rotation. So that's something else that we're really tracking very closely here for tonight, is a threat that there could be a couple of tornadoes. Now, watch is not in effect right now, but don't be shocked if we get a couple of warnings. And as you take a look at that line, you can kind of see some interesting shapes and features all embedded within that. And as we take a look at velocity mode here on Doppler radar, we can see a couple of areas where there may be a little bit of rotation. Most of this is offshore right now, but those would be water spouts, right? And once they work their way onto land, they then become tornadoes, and they can and do cause damage. So tornadoes are a possibility tonight, really from about Lake Okeechobee on southward. And I really do think kind of that sweet spot, the most likely area for that to happen today is going to be into those coastal areas. Now, we've got torcons well into tonight through the overnight hours of a 2 and a 3, but I think the next couple of hours are going to be kind of key when those are going to be a little bit more likely. But tomorrow it's a possibility as well, and I think that shift is going to be a little bit more over southwestern parts of Florida. So Naples, you get in on this, as well as Everglades City, stretching down through the Keys. Again, another vulnerable area for the threat of a few of these tropical tornadoes. And speaking of the Keys, let's talk about some of these impacts here. You're really getting in on some of the stronger wind gusts right now, and the strongest winds are going to continue tonight, but you're also likely going to see some occasional gusts greater than 60 miles per hour through the day tomorrow. Rainfall on top of what you've already seen, most likely in that 3 to 5 inch range. West Palm Beach, you've had a lot of rain here as well. In fact, the last month or so, you've had quite the rainfall surplus, so we don't want or need any more of that. Likely going to be in the area of 2 to 3 inches or so, and the strongest winds are likely going to be overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. And a quick look at Fort Myers. Fort Myers tonight through Monday morning is when you'll see the strongest winds, greater than 45 miles per hour. Your rainfall totals between 1 and 2 inches.
It's